most musicians spend weeks or even months practicing pieces without ever truly mastering them. I've certainly been there, and so have hundreds of my students, until I realized you just need to apply two relatively simple steps. But the problem is that most musicians only follow one or other of these steps, and that's why they stay stuck. So in this video, I'll explain both steps and exactly how to execute them correctly, so you can play even the trickiest pieces flawlessly. And the secret is to accept that you can't jump straight to mastering a piece in one go. You've got to go through these two very different ways of practicing, and you must do this in a very specific order. First, you're going to take it apart like an inventor, and then you'll put it back together like a craftsman. And the words inventor and craftsman are very deliberate here, because it's not just that you're doing two separate steps in a process. You need to behave very differently in each step, like you're two completely different people. Now, most musicians default to one of these behaviors and miss the other, so chances are the missing key could be as simple as learning a new behavior that you use in only some of your practice. Let's get into the specific details of how to behave in each stage so that you can finally master the pieces you love. Stage 1. Take it apart like an inventor. Picture your stereotypical inventor's workshop. It's messy. Everything's been broken down into small parts to see how their bits work. There are random piles of tools and materials scattered around, just in case they're needed at some point. And there are failed experiments everywhere. And this is exactly the sort of mindset you want to adopt in stage 1 of mastering a piece. Be curious and try lots of different things. Prioritize discovery over perfection. Tinker with lots of small changes. Try version 2, version 3, version 4, and so on, seeing if you can find a slightly better way each time. And at this stage, you're happy to make lots of mistakes, because the only thing that matters right now is that you end up with something solid. And the more wrong answers you test to start with, the more likely you are to eventually find a really good one. And far from mistakes being a problem later on, they're actually the best way for you to learn. Science shows that making and then deliberately correcting errors is what actually causes permanent changes in your brain. But what exactly does this inventor mode look like in practice? Here are the specific things you've got to do at this stage. Work on short sections, short enough that you're isolating individual parts, shorter than you think. Break things into really tiny little sections and tackle them one at a time. And go slow. Slow enough that you can observe and test. And again, slower than you think. Focus only on the problem spots. You see, inventors don't spend time on the bits that already work. They identify the biggest problem and test lots of possible solutions. And they do this over and over again until they find something that fixes it. So really test lots of different things. It's not enough to just play it over and over and hope that it will magically go right one time. You have to be willing to try different things. Some of them might be long shots that you don't expect to work. And talk to yourself. This is one of the best ways of making sure you're really thinking through stuff. And when I say this, I do genuinely mean talk out loud to yourself as you're practicing. In between repetitions, just think, I wonder if I change the way that I finger it, will that work better? Or, oh, I noticed I was a bit tense there. What could I do to change that? And just like an inventor, keep track of what works and what doesn't as you're tinkering with things. You'll get to the point where you've figured out a way to handle every individual tiny bit of the piece. And then it's time to move on to stage 2. Put it back together like a craftsman. You see, a craftsman's workshop will look very different from an inventor's. Here, tools and materials are in order. They're ready to be used where and when they're needed. There's a workflow mapped out. Each piece of work is done efficiently and precisely every time. And this is exactly the sort of mindset you want to adopt in stage 2 of mastering a piece. Have a proven template that you're working to. You know exactly what you're doing, no more experiments. And take care to play everything correctly. Repeat the same way again and again. Precision over creativity. You see, here we're polishing the final version that we'd already locked down. We want to avoid mistakes. The focus is on getting it right this time. Now, practice like this can never create new pathways in your brain. That only happens back in inventor mode, but it does strengthen them. So this is where you're reinforcing your desired way of playing things, and we're also letting all the bad ways we might have tried earlier simply fade away. by deliberately making sure that we don't repeat them at this stage. Now, you shouldn't need too much specific guidance here. This sort of stuff is the perfect practice that people talk about all the time, and most of it is plain common sense. But there are a couple of important things that I want you to hit. So start from the problem spots you identified earlier and then ironed out. So put them gradually into bigger and bigger chunks, incorporating more of the surrounding supposedly easy material. And the longer the passage you're playing, the tougher it gets to get it right. So you're going to build up that length gradually. And I want you to start slow again. Play at a speed where you can easily play it correctly and while you're staying relaxed. If you rush ahead to full speed too soon, it will actually take you longer to master it in the long run. So be patient. And hopefully now you can see why we need both these stages. Step 1, the inventor stage, is where you create pathways in your brain in the first place. It's how you gain the new abilities and understandings that you'll need to eventually play the piece masterfully. And step 2, the craftsman step, on the other hand, that's where you strengthen those existing pathways. And the order is crucial because your brain can only improve something that you can already do. So most musicians start crafting their final version of the piece way too soon, when what they really need is to stop, try out loads of rough prototypes first, and only then build a polished final version. But there's one thing I haven't mentioned yet that's essential in both stages. You've got to stay focused when you practice for mastery, because your brain only changes when you pay attention. Mindless repetition does nothing for long-term learning. And remember, in stage 1, we're creating pathways in the brain. And in stage 2, we're strengthening those pathways. Both of these are real changes to your brain and therefore require attention. Now, this means that you've got to limit the length of your practice sessions. It may feel that this is going to slow you down, but you'll actually improve much more in, for example, 6 10-minute sessions where you're really focused throughout than in, say, 4 30-minute sessions where you lose focus after 5 or 10 minutes. Because it's not the total time practicing that matters, even when you're following this 2-stage system correctly. It's the time you spend with intense focus. And of course, you're free to take a little break and come back to it, or practice multiple times sprinkled throughout the day. So you may not even need to reduce your overall practice time at all to make this work. Just split it up into short segments. So don't forget to take breaks. And remember, by the time you're aware you really need a break, that means you'll have been practicing with low focus already for a good chunk of time. So take breaks before you feel you need them. And one other thing that's important to recognize, having 2 completely separate stages is a beautiful way to look at this in theory, but the reality is never going to be quite that clear cut. You're not ever going to do one huge stint in inventor mode and then only act in craftsman mode after that. You'll find you'll need to move back and forth more fluidly. Sometimes you'll already have progressed to craftsman mode when you'll notice a new problem, so you'll need to shift back to inventor mode to deal with it. Just use your judgment and you'll be fine. But science has shown that there's one specific technique that locks the work you do to master a piece in twice as quickly and twice as securely as the way most musicians practice. So watch this video next where I show you exactly how to use it to master pieces much faster.